opinion, what are some early signs of autopilot?
And when I came out into the world and got into this role of sales, I was good at it. And it gave me the validation that I didn't know how to give myself. And so then became this sprint of trying to outperform myself and the constant need for the validation. And leadership means to me, how are you leading yourself? Like so many, if you were raised like I was in the corporate world, and I'm not poo-pooing over it, but we were raised on taking these assessments and doing these tests and everything's outwardly. And so few of us are ever taught on how you're leading yourself. What was the first thing you did this morning? 3 minutes of what you consume will impact you for 7 to 8 hours. You do a gratitude practice, whether you're 8 or 88, for 30 days, you will decrease depression and anxiety by 60%. I always say you fall to the comfort level of the people that you stand beside. And if you want to evolve, you have to evolve the women that you stand beside. For 15 years of striving for the next thing, and Alicia, I can remember the last few years really knowing that I was meant for more, knowing that there was more out there for me, that good enough isn't enough, to quote our girl Hoda, but not having the courage to make any moves. And what I realize now looking back is that there wasn't anything wrong with them or myself. It was just,
I am super excited to be here with Megan Miller. We'll do our official names, full government name here. Well, welcome to the 5 Minute Career Hack. I am so excited to talk to this speaker, this thought leader. And our topic today is just like, put on your seatbelt. We are talking about disrupting autopilot. And I just want to share a brief bit for me of like why this subject matters. I personally see a lot of people that are trying to do what's right, and it's a routine that just has them stuck and in bondage. And I also, when I heard this, thought about like everybody heads down and super engaged, but engaged with a screen. And I was like, oh my God, who knows where this is going to go. But today we are talking about breaking free from autopilot and choosing courage over comfort. So Megan, you have unleashed leadership. What is, when you hear the word leadership, what does that mean to you right now in this season?
to answer your question, Alicia, on what leadership means to me in this season of my life, because things are fluid, right? Leadership means to me, how are you leading yourself? Like so many, if you were raised like I was in the corporate world, and I'm not poo-pooing over it, but we were raised on taking these assessments and doing these tests and everything's outwardly. And so few of us are ever taught on how you're leading yourself. But aren't you the common denominator in every fulfilled email, in every conversation that you have? And when I think of leadership, I think of that crucial, like core of the glacier leadership, which is leading of yourself and the courage, one, to be aware, and then two, the action that you take that isn't in this knee-jerk reaction of transactionality of what do they want from me, who do I need to be in this room, but what's in line with the core of your being, and not with who you've always had to be, but who you want to become.
I love that. I've been thinking a lot around being, and that's what I pick up to your point around maybe not who you've been, but at your core. And I coach people often, and it's just bringing this up for me of like, I think there's also, at least to your point in the corporate space, if you're leading people, I always think of like the core of you or who you are is like kind of like in the middle. And if we're breaking it down, we have like maybe who you are in new situations and new seasons. And then we have who you are in like extreme situations, right? And people like there's this fluid, kind of piece of like what that is. So yeah, I love that start for us to kind of take inventory and think about that for ourselves. Thank you for grounding us there. So you talk a lot about the silent epidemic of autopilot. What does autopilot look like in everyday life? And why do you think so many high achievers are falling into it without even realizing it?
Mm. You know, so autopilot, and this is why, Alicia, it's so important for me to create spaces like this, to have conversations, because I'm 41 years old. And for the majority of my life, like if you were raised like I was, the women that I saw, and also the men, like everyone that I saw, there was this unspoken philosophy that it had to be hard,
Mm.
that if you weren't army crawling through it, then you weren't doing it right. And for so long in my life, I believed that my strength came from how much I could endure. And so when I think about autopilot, Alicia, it was staying under this blanket of comfort in every facet of my life, whether it be the job, knowing that I had outgrown that role, but I was damn good at it. So I was getting the applause. So I thought it's where I needed to be, whether it was in the romantic relationships in my life. I mean, hell, hand raised, my 20s and my 30s, girl. I was in every wrong relationship that there was. But I thought that that's just the way it was. I didn't know that I could ask for more. I thought it had to be hard, whether that be in your friendships. And so, and now I totally lost train of thought about what your question was again, about the autopilot, like just how
Yeah.
we live it. And I didn't know that I could ask for more. And I didn't know that there was another way. And so that is why I am so passionate on creating a space for this conversation. You know, myself and the Unleash team were just at the Forbes Women's Summit last week, and Hoda got on that stage. Remember Hoda from the NBC show, and in her 60s had the power to reinvent herself and begin again? Here's to knowing there's no age limit on that. And Alicia, I wrote this down because I want to make sure I brought this up in this beautiful conversation that we're having today, that good enough isn't enough. We've been trained to believe that if it isn't terrible, if it isn't tragic, then we shouldn't be greedy. Then that is enough. But good enough isn't enough. And you deserve more than a B plus life.
Wow. So what are, like, in your opinion, what are some early signs of autopilot? Or
Well,
maybe what were some in your own life? Like you talked about, like breaking up 20s, 30s, relationships, it maybe even in your career. Like what do you think those, like what were those signs for you when you look back?
yeah. The first thing that came to mind was the quiet resentment. The quiet resentment, the stress backpack, the fuck, I don't want to start today. Like the exhaustion before you even get out of bed. The thought when you hear that phone ping, before you even look to see who it is, what the hell do they want from me now? When you catch yourself, Alicia, you know that feeling when at the end of the day, you feel like a Mack truck just hit you and you are so exhausted, you can barely show up for the people that you love in your life. I think you can just get so immune to that. And I like to say that I think the biggest gift you can give yourself is to one, begin with awareness. Like she's the cool kid at the party that doesn't get enough airtime. And that's where it all begins. You can't change what you're not aware of. And then the second thing that we can lose sight of is that the power in action that we are in control of. And that begins one micro moment decision at a time.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. Like, and what's the difference for someone that may feel like those things were healthy? Because you mentioned, like, for you, you had been brought up, and everybody has a culture, right? And everyone has a way they've been conditioned and orientated, whether that's with their parents, the job, school, whatever it is, right? Of like, this is normal. And for you, hard was normal. Like, what is maybe a tip for someone that may thinks that they have a healthy routine or nothing is wrong with the way they're doing these things that you're describing? Like, how can they tell the difference between what's healthy and what may be harmful.
Yeah. Yeah. And Alicia, that's a really great point. I've had so many conversations about that around this achievement. Sometimes as women, we've been trained to believe that achievement is unhealthy. And I always say this, girl, go out, achieve. It is your birthright. Like, do the things. But know, when you are doing things looking for validation versus when you are doing things from internal alignment. So let me give you an example, Alicia. And I'm not saying you need to, rip the Band-Aid off and disrupt your life and do the divorce and move cross country and quit your job. Hell, because guess who's following you? You are. But I'm saying it begins one micro moment decision at a time. And I can unpack that. But let me go back and give you an example of, misalignment versus alignment. So, Alicia, I was in a sales role for 15 years of my corporate career. And at one point in my life, that job really made me feel seen in a way that I was so hungry for. I was this chubby kid from Central PA, raised by a single mom. And I was I wasn't a good student. I wasn't in athletics. Like, I was so desperate to find my people, to find something that gave me a validation, because I didn't know how to give it to myself and how I wasn't even aware that I was looking for this. And when I came out into the world and got into this role of sales, I was good at it. And it gave me the validation that I didn't know how to give myself. And so then became this sprint of trying to outperform myself and the constant need for the validation. And for 15 years of striving for the next thing, and Alicia, I can remember the last few years really knowing that I was meant for more, knowing that there was more out there for me, that good enough isn't enough, to quote our girl Hoda, but not having the courage to make any moves. And what I realize now looking back is that there wasn't anything wrong with them or myself. It was just misalignment. And so when I finally had the courage to begin to build my own business, which began as a side thing, something I did at night, something I did on the weekends, as you know, did I slowly begin, it took me 2 years to then build the business full time. And Alicia, I can tell you now, I am working harder than I ever did. But at the end of the day, I am so excited to tell my husband about the day. I am so excited to talk to my mom. I am so excited to be engaged in my life. And that is what I am here to tell you. When you are in alignment, it's not about how much you're working. It's not about, you don't feel this depletion at the end of the day. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And I think, I was thinking about, before we even got started, I was curious about examples of when you chose courage over comfort. And that's what I hear you saying. And I think what makes sense for me as I'm hearing you talk, to your point, when we're talking to so many high achievers or even people that like now feel like they've gotten to this level, and I hear you using words like transactional, all of those things, right? But I think for me, what I'm hearing you say and what resonates for me is, and I've been debunking this myth personally as well, of like striving is actually misalignment, right? And I've been breaking up with that for myself because, to your point, I've been as a student athlete. I mean, from heck, 8 years old. Like I remember coming home with that sheet of like, oh, they have this track team, right? And I can think all of that into my 20s, like it hasn't stopped. And that's just how I'm wired. To your point, as a competitive person or someone that wants to be. And to your point, I don't hear you saying that there is anything wrong with that, but being aware of how you're wired. But I'm at a point now at 45 where, hey, always striving, thinking there's somewhere you need to be or somewhere you're not, or this isn't here, is
Yeah.
actually misaligned. And that doesn't mean you don't have goals, right? Because I didn't hear you say that of like, hey, I didn't have this. This gave me that. This was very fulfilling for me, but and kind of talking through. So no, I think that's very clear for me. And I love that personal story. How would you encourage other people to build that muscle courage? Because that took a lot to say, hey, I've reinvented myself. I'm really good here, but like that pivot, like how would you encourage others to build that muscle? Or maybe how did you do it?
Yeah. So I got to say, girl, you were taking me to church because when you talked about courage over comfort, it's a
Yeah.
constant thing. Like
Yes.
I preach this, and let me tell you, I have to live it almost every day. And let me give
Yeah.
you a real life example of something that just came up this week. Um, so we can grow and evolve. And this, I've realized this just this week, Alicia, because the lessons are always coming. I'm like I just said, life is never handing you the shit sandwich, regardless of if it's an inconvenient shit sandwich or a shit sandwich that you can like barely swallow. It's like the peanut butter that can't get down your throat, right? Regardless the size of it, life is giving you a lesson. And what you look for, you find. And how are you going to answer that? Or, and so just last week, courage over comfort in my relationships has shown up like this. My husband and I have been together 8 years, and I have realized that you grow and evolve, but so often we never grow and evolve the dynamics of the relationships of those closest to us. Our partners, our kids, our family, the coworkers we've worked alongside for decades, our clients. And then there is this exhaustion because you've always been this way in the relationship. And so we're never, to your point earlier, aware enough to speak it. I had this whole moment where there was strain in my marriage. My husband, Michael, is going through a job transition, which again brings a lot of insecurities, and the gremlins can really start chirping and needing my emotional bandwidth. And Alicia, I was getting so frustrated because it was like so much of my emotional energy is going towards On Leash, building what we're building here. I don't have the emotional capacity to be your anchor that I once did. And how many times have you felt that frustration? Like, oh, I can't help you right now. I am like barely hanging on myself. And so once I realized this, I had the courage to say to him, and this is what I'm talking about, the micro moment decisions. When he was asking my support the next night after I had this revelation, I said to him, I understand this is important to you. I don't have the emotional capacity right now to help you with this. Can we pick this back up in 15 minutes? Let me take Stella for a walk. Let me decompress, and then I can help you with it. And Alicia, the craziest thing happened. And I've realized this. It's not about how they respond. It is about the self-advocacy. I came back from that walk an entirely different woman because I was aware, I spoke it, I asked for the space, and it changed the rest of our night. And it also gave me the permission slip to put down the stress backpack that I didn't even realize I was holding. So to go back to your question, the courage over comfort happens every day in these micro moment decisions, whether it's the courage to ask your partner for what you need, whether it's the courage to not be a part of the meeting that you've always been in because you don't have the capacity to do it, whether it's the courage over comfort to just hit record and start the podcast, whether it's the courage over comfort to do the LinkedIn message, even though it's scary as all hell. It begins in these micro moment decisions, whether it's the courage over comfort to put the sneakers on that you haven't gotten out of the closet in years. You feel like shit in your body and you keep telling yourself, I'm going to do the hour Peloton class, but you don't. But it begins with the 15-minute walk around the block. It's those micro moment decisions.
Wow. Thank you for that example. That is definitely for me today because have you heard do you know Rachel Rogers? Have you heard of her before?
I have
Okay.
7, right? She does
Yes,
the
Hello
7. Yeah,
Seven. Yes. And you thought, I know you use the word and you talk a lot about women, badasses, and that's been in our message. And it made me think about, because that's her. And I see her that way. And that as you were talking, the Hello Seven is kind of the dynamic. She has a book, We Should All Be Millionaires. I talk about it all the time. And not because I aspire to be a millionaire,
Mm,
would be bad. Not saying that, but it's not a goal, right? Um, but she talks about in the seven principles, and one of them is around boundaries. And I have
mm,
a few friends, I call them success buddies, that we share and we kind of recap, whether that's daily, weekly, monthly. We go through these different kind of phases of how often we keep up.
mm,
But that principle, and I say that because one of the things around boundaries always comes up where I'm just like, I don't know that I'm just struggling coming up with it. And as you were talking, you created something that is available for all of us every day, right? When you think about, you created a boundary of it, like sometimes we think, especially emotionally, I'll speak for myself when I say we think, is like emotionally that's static. Like to your
mm,
point, being available for my spouse has to be all the time. When in that
mm,
moment, you were like, I am available. Okay, wait, I just realized that I'm not right now. I'm setting a boundary. Let me go get myself together, and then I can come back, and I want to be that for you, right? Like that, just as I was listening to that, it was like, whoa, to your point, a micro moment, but like even in a boundary and availability can be in the same space. So as you were saying, I
mm,
was like, wow, that's so awesome. Thank you. Thank you
mm,
for being transparent and sharing that, because I think that will set somebody free. And especially when we think about high achieving women, there's
mm,
so many that are single, that are in these positions, and they're finding themselves right in our age of like, I desire a relationship, but where does that fit in? And all of
mm,
these things I feel called to do.
mm.
Um, so I think that's, I don't know if you coach a lot of women there, but I think that just, definitely there's somebody listening to this that I think will really be able to like see themselves in that example. So thank
mm.
you.
And that's the gift of the work, right? Like I always say, you got to do the work first.
Yes.
And there's no easy way around it, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
wish it was pretty, but it's not. But there's freedom. There's so much freedom on the other end of it. And Alicia, you gave me a little aha moment that I want to give to you
Yeah.
before my undiagnosed ADHD takes me down a whole nother path. You said success buddies. And
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, this has been an aha moment for me as of late.
Mm.
If you want to evolve, right? Because so often I think, and at least I'm speaking for myself here, a
Mhm.
lot of my resentment that I had in life that I wanted to escape from and numb with, whether that's the social scrolling, whether that was the booze, whether that was hiding in my bathrobe, whether that was not leaving the house, whatever it was, I can look back now and see that it was because I knew I was meant for more, but I did not know what that was. And so the freedom that comes from evolving who you stand beside. I always say you fall to the comfort level of the people that you stand beside.
Mhm.
And if you want to evolve, you have to evolve the women that you stand beside. In each phase of my life, and as I continue to grow, do I evolve the women that I stand beside, who are doing bigger things because I feel called to that. And it has pulled out this untapped potential in myself. And as women, that is one of our many superpowers. We can see things in each other we can't see in ourselves. And so, for the woman listening, for so long in my life, I felt that solo was independence, that I got it, I'll figure it out, I always do, and put myself in this little cocoon because it felt like safety. But what it really was a slow drain of my potential. And so my rally cry is that you get a tribe of women around you that are doing what you want to do, because it will help you see bigger. It'll help you take action. It will help you step into the next iteration of who you're meant to be. And you don't do that alone.
Yeah, love that. Okay, let's talk about some micro tools. You've been talking
Mm.
about micro moments, right? So you're known for transforming theory into action with science-backed micro tools. So the audience may not know that about you, but could you walk us through maybe one practical tool that helps people break free from autopilot today?
Oh yeah, girl. I got about we could be here all day, but the first one
Just
that
one, yeah,
with the
yeah,
first one that comes to mind for me, and this goes back to where we started with the autopilot and transactionality.
yep.
I want your beautiful listeners to think about how they start their day. Okay. First thing you do when you crack open those beautiful eyes of yours to start a fresh new day, are you going to the phone to get caught up on the emails from last night, get a little head start, check your Instagram, check this what came through overnight, look at your text messages, maybe you turn the news on right away, maybe you go to your screaming baby. What was the first thing you did this morning? 3 minutes of what you consume will impact you for 7 to 8 hours. So, what you are consuming when you crack open those eyes is going to take you through the entirety of the rest of the day. What you feed your mind matters. And there is science behind it. I like to say there's a bouncer up here, right? And you tell it what to let in. So, when you crack open those emails and the 2,500 employees, Alicia, that are looking to you for guidance, I always like to say, what's waiting in your inbox? It isn't you're killing it, girl. Go light the world on fire. It's somebody needing your attention. Something didn't go right. So when you start your day that way, or what's on the news, or what's on the TV, right? When you start your day that way, you will find more things of that. What do they want? I got to fix everything. It's always on me. Ba, 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 ba. Whereas if you take those 3 minutes in the morning and you ask yourself, who do I want to be today? You ask yourself, what is one micro move that I can make for Alicia today? You ask yourself a powerful question. It can be something as simple as, what are 3 things I'm grateful for? There's been studies. You do a gratitude practice, whether you're 8 or 88, for 30 days you will decrease depression and anxiety by 60%. So I say, what are you doing when you open those beautiful eyes of yours? You set an intention for what you want the day to look like, who you want to be, one micro move. You are 45% more likely to achieve it.
Wow, that is gold. And I want somebody to like pause, hit like the
Mm,
15 seconds back, listen to that over again and see what comes up. And this may be a good point to like pause, whether you're looking at this on YouTube, you're listening to Apple, and just let that sink in.
mm.
Um, because that is just something to meditate on in itself. Like let me, to your point, if I'm really listening to this episode, starting with you said leading self, let me pause right now. So this is your invitation to do that and really think about what it like, let's take inventory. What did I do the first 3 minutes, right? In real life and not judge it. Not judge it. Like that's what I do and say, okay, hey, is that what I want to go forward with the rest of the day? I think for me, it's been I love that tool. It has me thinking about I've been really focusing on the end of my day. Because I'm
Mm.
a person that has a really great morning routine. I do. And as a former athlete, like it's very easy for me to like this morning, I was like, okay, I know I want to get my like hot water with lemon and get my little green juice. I'm feeling
Yeah.
like super grown today because I had some greens. And that's great. But towards the end of the day, that stress backpack that you're talking about,
Mm.
like it's like mounted on. Like it's not even like it's not even picture it as a backpack. So I'm gonna take that and think about that for me of like what could that practice be in the evening because I would love to like in my that 8 hours of closing my eyes what I want that to be. So I'm taking that for myself. So thank you.
And Alicia, I love you and I are so simpatico today because I wanted to add this too.
Yeah.
Because so many of us, maybe you have a solid morning routine, but maybe it's at night. And I got to tell you, because if your brain works like mine, it
Hmm.
never stops. I always like to say there's 75 tabs in here at any given time, and it's like ding, 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 ding. So one of the things that helped me go to sleep, if you are like I was, I would catch myself grabbing my phone before bed to do one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. And then before I know it, I was on Amazon buying crap I didn't need. Then I'm on Instagram. Then I'm scrolling my Gmail account that has 13,000 unread emails, and I'm looking for homes that we don't have money to buy. And, right? And so with that concept of 3 minutes impacts you for 7 to 8 hours, think about what you consume right before you go to bed. Mm-hmm. And you are carrying that into your sleep. And if you have a rough night's sleep, you are 40% more likely to misread texts or emails the next day. Mm. And I found for me that my sleep got so much better when I started charging the phone in the bathroom. I put index cards by my bed to write my ideas down as they come. And I ended my day by writing 3 wins of the day. Just what were 3 things that made me feel good. And Martin Seligman did a study on this, that if you end your day just writing 3 wins, you will cut your anxiety and all of the gremlins that can talk in here by 50%.
Signed up. I'm starting today.
Yeah.
Starting today. Yes. High five. Yes, I love it. Thank you so much. Well, I want to, want to make sure that our audience understands the powerhouse we have today. And I have a couple more questions because I'm going to get into this, but you have impacted over 20,000 lives through this framework. And that is nothing short of remarkable. So what have you noticed are the most common barriers that hold people back, and when you help them overcome it? But what are there some common things when you think about at scale, the amount of people that you've been able to impact?
I will say this, and I have realized this, and I didn't know this for 15 years in my corporate career, is that because Alicia, I worked at the same job for over a decade. And I never knew the people that I worked alongside. I knew who to go to get the reports. I knew who to go to help me with this. I knew who to go to for certain things, but I never knew the human behind the thing, because I never made the time, because I didn't know how, because I wasn't trained to talk like that. I was trained 30 minutes, boom, boom, boom. Here's what we need to go. Thank you. Goodbye. And what I realized is that each of us has a story, and I've seen it with these beautiful humans worldwide. We are all so much more alike than we are different. And there is so much power when you allow yourself to be vulnerable in the rooms that you're in. And we talk about vulnerability, and sometimes it's hard to unpack. And when I think about the micro moves and what really began to shift for me and what I've seen in the rooms that I'm in is when you begin to just take that micro moment decision, instead of running into the laundry list of things to do, to just curate a human moment. Like Alicia, there were people I worked alongside for 10 years. I don't even know any of them had kids or their partners or the things. And the job began to get a lot sweeter when I began to curate these little micro moments to know the people I work alongside. So that's my challenge, is I want you to think about who you work alongside, and do you know who they are? And if you don't, why not? And when we create the space to know each other as humans, it's really amazing what you get to learn. And then who you become in the process, and where the work begins to go.
Yeah, I love that, because I think there's, as I'm listening to you say that, like, you think about your day, and especially people that have really good routines. Like, I was actually meeting with my admin yesterday, and she was like, "Does your view on your calendar look like what I did? Like all the color code?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it looks great, right?" And this morning I was pausing, looking at all the color coding. And granted, we have time to think. I literally have that, right? Reflect. But as you're talking, right, there is a pattern, right, in there of like how, whatever industry that you're in, of how you interact with people. And someone may be listening to what you're saying right now, judging, like, what do you mean you worked with somebody for a decade and you didn't know they had kids? because we've been on the other side to say that person didn't even know my boss or whoever doesn't know my kid's name, right? We're on the other side of that. But there is, if you break up, if we're thinking about this around breaking up autopilot, there's a way and method that you've done that, right? Like if we have a weekly touch base, we have all of the different things, right? We connect here. It's how we start the meeting. It's what we talk about. It's very easy to fall into that routine. And to your point, you're not feeling seen, but you're mimicking the same behavior and not seeing people as well. That's what I hear you say. Like, I'm owning my part in, I
Yeah.
didn't feel seen, but I'm doing it every day, right? So,
And you know
yeah,
what, Alicia, as you were just talking, I flashed to this. The power of the energy that you bring to the rooms that you're in, we never train or talk about that enough. And so maybe it's not even taking the step to ask the question, but I'm thinking, are you even aware of the energy that you are bringing to the rooms that you're in?
love that.
Because one, think about the people that you interact in a day. And I was just reading research on this. 1 in 3 people that you interact with in a day will take that energy that you brought into that meeting, take it into their next meeting. 1 in 3 people then take that into their next meeting, take it into their next meeting. That's the ripple impact. And so if you're showing up in the rooms that you're in, exhausted, just trying to go through what's the checklist, I'm so all these other things, that's this unspoken truth that people take then into the next room. So are you aware of the energy you're bringing into the rooms you're in?
Yeah, I love that challenge because there's somewhere where we can be better, right? And that's what I'm thinking about, right? And how do you just maybe shake it up sometimes? Like maybe this one is just questions. Maybe it's all for you. So that's a good challenge, especially anyone that works on teams, especially in this environment of so many people that are working from home, and this like loneliness epidemic that we have going on, right? I love that. So some really good things. So thank you so much. I know we need to wrap up here. But when we think about unleashing, right? And I know so for you and your business, I think about like unlocking untapped potential. So if you were to leave the listeners or maybe even your audience that you've been talking to, what's one step that you recommend that our listeners take today?
You know, I would just tell you this. We can so quickly forget that we have the power to change things. And we look at other people or we wait for permission slip or we have these great ideas or we tell ourselves this someday. And here is my rally cry to you. You are in control of your life. You are in control of what is possible for you. Don't wait for anyone else to write you a permission slip to do it. And that is not disempowering, that's empowering.
Mhm. I love that. Well, Megan, I want to thank you for your time today. You know, you are, everybody is a person of value, but it's not lost on me of the value of this time, of you being prepared. Thank you for your life's work, and even your work on yourself. That's so awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. I came into this conversation wanting to have 1 or 2 big takeaways. And I mean, you talked about tabs in your mind. Mine is like Paisley. Like this is how I write.
Yes, girl, we are simpatico. I know you can't see it, but I got a whole legal pad from
So
our time today, Alicia.
So check and check. We both took something. So we put that out there and hopefully that the audience did. But you know what I want to leave everyone with of what I heard is like, don't wait for the perfect time. Start disrupting autopilot today. And you gave us a lot of tips of just micro thoughts, micro movements, gestures, and self-reflection. And I just appreciate you for that. So audience, thank you. It has been another great episode. You know, our desire here is to expose you to amazing people. And, you know, they come on here and they're very transparent and never disappoint. So hopefully if this episode blessed you, you can share this with at least 5 other people, like, comment on what you took away. But thank you again for tuning in. And with that, that's a wrap. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.